there are economies in the region that are aging quite quickly, and also because of the rise in the income levels and also technical and technology penetration, there is now demand for more and more high-quality healthcare products and solutions. And if we look at a report by the private equity firm Quadra Capital, they estimated that by 2024, the whole healthcare market in Asia will come to US $4 trillion. So it is an immense market. And in particular, of course, there is mainland China, where people are fully aware of the aging population issue, and also there is an increasing focus on personal well-being. So mainland China itself has also been spending quite a lot of efforts in terms of innovation in the healthcare and medical technology field. What we need then is to look at how we can bring together every player in this huge ecosystem of healthcare together so that we can have more collaboration and hopefully a brighter future for all of us. If we looked at what Hong Kong is about, I would here want to suggest that Hong Kong is the best place for us to bring everybody in the ecosystem together. Why? Because Hong Kong is already now the largest healthcare investment and business hub in Asia, and also the second largest IPO sector for biotech companies. 67 healthcare and biotech companies were listed in Hong Kong since 2018, raising a total of $26.8 billion US. And of these, 33 are actually pre-revenue biotech firms that raised a total of $11.2 billion. And if we looked at the very active research being done in Hong Kong and in the mainland and in the region, we believe that Hong Kong's role as a fundraising hub for biotech firms will only continue to grow. But Hong Kong is so much more than just a fundraising hub. It also is an important R&D center for health innovation. This year, as you will probably be aware, 5 of our universities have been ranked among the world's top 100 in the QS University rankings. And both the University of Hong Kong and the Chinese University of Hong Kong also ranked among the top 50 in the life science and medicine category. And so we have Professor Mok here with us today who can talk more about our strengths in R&D in Hong Kong. Other than having the fundraising capability, the good R&D fundamentals, we also have be in the fortunate position of being in a huge market. And here I'm talking about mainland China, of course, but in particular, the Greater Bay Area. And that is another 87 million of potential market, but also great R&D strengths as well. So I feel that it is only logical that Hong Kong should be launching our first ever Asia Summit on Global Health. And what we hope to do is that this particular summit will bring together the policymakers, the investors, business leaders, academia, and all the players in this ecosystem to discuss about global health issues, but also to find opportunities for collaboration and forge connections. So this is why we are doing our first ever Asia Summit on Global Health. And I will be very happy to give you more details later on.
Thank you, Margaret, for the introduction. So let me now move on to Mr. Au. Mr. Au, among the different medical and healthcare sectors, biotechnology has a conspicuous development. So as the director of Hong Kong Biomed Innotech Association and your wealth of experience and expertise in healthcare investment, could you please share with us the global investment landscape in healthcare, and is there any areas of growth and challenges?
Yeah, sure. I think the pandemic has really accelerated the development, be it on both the public as well as the private side of healthcare organization. to first adapt and also to innovate and react and try to be taking preventive measures as to what could come next. So with that backdrop, I think the more and more attention, particularly in Asia, increasingly focus on investment and operating opportunities within biotechnologies, of which we are one of the players, and we're delighted to see more people joining force. And with the background that Margaret explained as well, in Hong Kong actually it's fundamentally very well positioned with very good basic and applied research from universities. And what needed perhaps is to add to the downstream application and value chain. And if I were to share a few things that we ourselves from the investment side have been looking into, there are trends like how to adopt machine learning into helping out a standing limiting factor, having affordable, accessible treatment options. And adopting deep learning would be one way in which you could interpret data and to really offer a good diagnosis at a good time frame, trying to be ahead of the curve. And if you look at some of the companies that we're involved with, we provide real-time sequencing solution as to straining of the virus. We try to develop predictive algorithm and working on different organs, trying to help practitioners into deciding on the next best course of action. And it all boils down to automation, to adopt advanced sensors, and that all requires investments. And also top-down to bottom-up practitioner into gathering together and come down to solutions. Of course, there are challenges remain. I echo that there's a big market just north of Hong Kong, but and Hong Kong, interestingly, Professor Mok would be in a good position to share as well. We have very good clinical trial facilities that could facilitate international solutions into entering the mainland. And with a downstream market right there, I think integrating with the Greater Bay Area would be a big trend. And we certainly have weakness, and we've been trying to pull in a lot of resources into automation, advanced sensors, and try to have a say in the predictive care side of things from many of our investees.
Thank you, Mr. Au. So you talk about GBA just now. The HKSAR government has been supporting the development of Hong Kong's quality healthcare services as part of the GBA. Professor Mok, you have a vast amount of experience in GBA under your capacities in Sinomex, AstraZeneca, and HUTCHMED. So I have a question for you. How do you see the GBA opportunities in healthcare, and what roles can Hong Kong play in the Bay Area's healthcare industry development?
If okay, can I stand up? Can I stand up to talk?
Sure.
It's much easier to be closer to the audience rather than sitting down. So most professors are not natural-born entrepreneurial, and at least I'm not. So when I first started the company in 2015, the only thing I know how to do is to do research. So I started the company like any research with three major components, namely, that is idea, people, resources, and resources. So those are the three things I'm going to share with you, how the Hong Kong and the GBA may advance us into the development. Idea. Majority of innovation idea come from university. I would say in United States, Hong Kong, China, 80% of the innovation come from university. So the question is, how do we transform this idea into a commercial entity? As stated, the idea creation usually comes from professor or the student. For the professor, Hong Kong had the advantage is that a good number of professors are actually China-born, US or Europe educated, and now working in Hong Kong. So they get both the international exposure and the knowledge about China. So the idea that's being developed can easily be transformed and communicated with both mainland and international. That's one. Second, a lot of our graduate students are actually from China these days, and they do have a deep heritage in where they come from and understand the market situation, So for me, some of my students had already developed some idea that potentially can be transformed into patent and potentially into biotechnology development in Asia and China. So I think the key is the matter is that how do we develop the hub to put this together? One of the greatest ideas that's going on right now is that a lot of the major universities are having campus in China, including the Hong Kong Science and Technology University, CUHK and Hong Kong U. And with our new campus development, I think the linkage will be even higher. So I think this is one important so-called knowledge hub and idea hub that we can develop. Second, people. I can guarantee you that I know nothing about business, but the one reason why we can put Sanomic into a relatively successful company is the fact that we have great people to help us. My CEO, who has been working with me for the past 5 years, is actually a graduate of Hong Kong University on biomedical science. And now he took us up all the way in this past few years, working closely together. And without him, I'm useless. So the question is that how do we partner the university professor with this young entrepreneur to work together? And then there's a great wealth of this entrepreneur and being available. More than that, that entrepreneur can actually come from China with, in the Greater Bay Area. How do we connect us together? So I'm hoping the Hong Kong government can do some matchmaking, putting the professor and the young entrepreneur together. And also, there's one other string about the Hong Kong young people is the fact that they're willing to fight the battle. I can tell you that among the audience, I have Sam, who's with me. He co-founded the telecommunication, the tele-oncology company with me. He originally worked for Sanomic as my IT director. But when COVID came, patients from China cannot come over to Hong Kong. We developed this platform and have been running in the past year. So this is young men jumping out of the comfort zone, doing something independently. And I think this is a world of so-called resources that we can tap into. Last but not the least, for the resources, I'm quite sure the investment is inevitable. We have North money, local money, and South money coming to the same period. And also being here, I actually had the opportunity to meet the investor from different parts of the world as well as from China. So in a sense, is that depending on the nature of product, I think there's a selection of investment that we can have. And one other major resource is our geopolitical region. This is actually a very important aspect in a way is that we can step out to the Southeast Asia with relative ease. Our Sanomic had actually extended our branch into Thailand, and that is a combination of both the resources that we have provided in Hong Kong. We actually have some funding support from Hong Kong government and some funding support from the Thailand, as well as a young lady who worked for our company, freshly graduate, and then willing to spend 1.5 years by herself in a foreign country to help me to develop the country. And so without that, I don't think this is actually possible. So with all this, including the idea that we have in Hong Kong together with Greater Bay Area Thai, and also with the people, the young people with vision that we have in Hong Kong, they're willing to work in both Greater Bay Area and Southeast Asia, and the financial resources and the support from government, I think we are in a good place. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Mo, for your insightful sharing. Let me just quickly jump back to Margaret. So the summit is definitely an important addition to the HKTDC's current suite of anchor events, which includes the Asian Financial Forum and the Belt and Road Summit. As with these two existing forums, I'm sure the speaker lineup at the ASGH must be very influential and diverse. So Margaret, would you mind sharing with us the speaker lineup and other highlights of the summit?
Thank you. Let me here just give you a quick rundown of what we've lined up for you for the 24th of November. So for our first edition, the theme of the summit is shaping a resilient and sustainable future. I think resilience and sustainability are two key words that you will be hearing a lot, not just for healthcare, but across all sectors. We are delighted to have already recruited 70 distinguished speakers from around the world, including from global and national institutions, companies, and universities to be joining us at this year's summit. There are basically three components to our summit. First one, of course, is the conference itself. The second part would be an exhibition, and the third part is the advisory and business matching, which Professor Mork also alluded to. So yes, we are doing that. So what we will do is that, as for all our major trade events, it will be a hybrid format where we will have both physical and online formats so that we can reach out to a wider audience. We have our Chief Executive of the Hong Kong SAR, Mrs. Carrie Lam, and Dr. Soumya Swaminathan, the Chief Scientist of the World Health Organization, who will be opening the conference. We then, of course, also have a policy dialogue session, which will discuss on how to build a resilient public healthcare system. We have Dr. Margaret Chan from the Vanke School of Public Health at Tsinghua University, who will be chairing the panel session. And we have Hong Kong's own Secretary for Food and Health, Professor Sophia Chan, Dr. Takashi Kansai, who is Regional Director for the Western Pacific from the WHO, and also Mr. Ong Yi Kong, the Minister for Health from Singapore, who will be joining us. There will, of course, also be other key topics, including health-related innovation and investment. And we have speakers from major healthcare, pharma, and technology sectors around the world. Some of the well-known names, if I may just name a few, would be like Hoffmann La Roche, AstraZeneca, Fosun, Teaming Venture Partners, We Doctor Holdings, and many more. In terms of the markets, of course, we will be focusing on the mainland, but in particular also the Greater Bay Area and also the ASEAN as well. For the ASEAN, we have invited hospital and healthcare providers from Hong Kong, Indonesia, Malaysia, and Thailand who will be sharing their insights. Also, in the GBA session, we would have the Hong Kong SAR Government Secretary for Innovation and Technology, Alfred Sitt, plus also healthcare and hospital providers in the GBA who will be talking about the potential and also the specific needs of the GBA market. Other than these major plenary sessions, we also have two tracks. The first one is sustainability, and the second one, inspiration track. Under the sustainability track, we will be focusing on the future of global public health, health equity, and the building of a resilient public health system. Here, we will feature pioneers in health from well-renowned organizations like the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, the International Finance Corporation of the World Bank Group, and also Gavi, the Vaccine Alliance. Also, we have leading academic experts from Harvard University, Boston University, Brown University, University of Hong Kong, and University College London, and of course, Chinese University Hong Kong as well. And for the inspiration track, we will be talking about the latest technological advancement and direction of future innovation, including biotech, AI, big data, drugs, and device development. Here, we will have eminent innovators from Chinese University of Hong Kong and companies such as Fibrosonic, In Silico Medicine, CMR Surgical, Tencent Healthcare, and Shiba Medical Center who will be speaking. And for the important part of business matching, we will have deal flow matchmaking session. This platform aims to connect potential investors and business partners with our startups and companies who are looking for investment. And the meetings will be arranged either physically or online, depending on where they are at that particular point in time. And for the newcomers to the industry, we have also set up a Business of Healthcare Advisory Zone. So here, they will be able to get more advice from investors and business advisors who will tell them how to better position themselves if they're interested in looking at the healthcare field in Hong Kong and in the region. For the summit, we have over 80 startups who will be set up under the InnoHealth Showcase And they are coming from different countries and regions. So it's not just Hong Kong and mainland China, but like US, Israel, Korea, Singapore, and so on and so forth. And we also have lined up over 30, in fact, investment mentors who, again, come from around the world so that they can share with them what they are looking for when they are looking for startups that they can invest in. So this is the first time we're bringing together global, regional, and local leaders focused on healthcare. And we hope that this debut function will then turn into an annual flagship event that we can bring everybody together in this ecosystem to discuss global health and also to talk about collaboration. Before I end, I just want to here thank all our sponsors, our partners, all our speakers, and our 18 honorary advisors who have worked so hard to make this possible. And I know I've given you a lot of facts which you will not be able to capture just like in the past 5 minutes, but all the detailed information will be in the press kit, or you can check on our website for the detail lined up. Thank you.
Thank you, Margaret, and thank you to all our guests for giving us such valuable insights today. The upcoming Asia Summit on Global Health will definitely be a right occasion to feature a number of forward-looking topics, which I believe will be of great interest to all those engaged in the medical and healthcare fields, and to encourage business exchange and collaboration among the global participants. So, ladies and gentlemen, here comes to the Q&A section. If you have any questions for our guests, please raise your hand, and our colleagues will pass you the microphone. Please state your name and organization you represent before asking your question. 咁而家將會係傳媒嘅答問環節啦。如果各位傳媒朋友有問題嘅話咧，可以先舉手。咁我哋麻煩講一講你嘅代表機構，咁我哋就會再將個咪 pass 俾你嘅。會唔會現場有任何媒體想提問？如果未有嘅話咧，其實我哋喺 online 咧都即係收到一啲嘅提問嘅。We have received a question from our overseas media, Silicon Global News. So I guess this question is for Margaret. Our media friend would like to know what on-site antivirus measures would HKTDC plan for this event?
Right. Yeah, good question. That's something that we all take very seriously. Of course, we will closely follow all the guidelines that have been set by the Hong Kong SAR government in terms of holding public events. So what we will have is that all our staff and contractors, they will all be doing the test in advance of the event. And during the event, of course, everybody will have their mask on, so no food and drink, I'm afraid. And of course, there will be regular disinfecting and social distancing requirements will also be employed. In fact, it is not the first time that HKTDC has done a hybrid event, i.e. both physical and online. We have a number of major conferences happening in the last couple of months, and everything has proceeded smoothly and without any unusual incidents. So we are quite confident that you are all very welcome to come, and you will be in a very safe environment.
Thank you, Margaret. Is there any media friends who would like to ask our guests? We also have another question from our overseas media. I guess this question is for Margaret as well. With international travel still greatly restricted by COVID-19, how many speakers will not be able to join in person, and how does this affect our event?
Well, I think what's happening is that in the past 1.5 years, I think people around the world has got used to this idea of doing online meetings and where possible, perhaps a smaller scale physical gathering to do networking and so on. So for this event, again, basically all the Hong Kong-based speakers will be appearing physically, obviously, whilst our overseas and mainland speakers will be joining us online. And as I've mentioned, we have had quite a number of events where we've done hybrid or even completely online arrangements. And if I may just quote one that happened January this year, when I think things are still, perhaps people are more concerned about the pandemic. For our Asian Financial Forum, for instance, we have all our overseas speakers speak online, but we had a record turnout of 66,000 viewers around the world. So it has not deterred the interest. I believe we have a very good lineup, and being an area of such keen interest among the world, I believe it would not in any way affect the turnout for our event.
Thank you, Margaret. We also have one more question from overseas media, the Manila Times. So there are two questions altogether. The first one would be, do you think Asian countries need more collaboration in terms of health, especially when more countries are moving to the end of, close to the end of COVID-19? And the second question is this the first time that such a big event of this scale to be held on the Asian health landscape? So I guess the first question could be open to both all our guests on stage. Would Professor Mok or Mr. Au would like to say a few words?
Sure. I think I can speak from the academic community that the Asian country had always been collaborative. I mean, for clinical research, for translational research, there had been a different level of collaboration. Now, obviously, I'm not in the best position to talk about collaboration in terms of the companies among the Asian country and Asia, but in my limited experience, that I find it to be relatively receptive. As long as it's a good business deal, I'm sure there's a conversation. So I think the door is quite open, and then with our language and geographic benefit, I certainly do see that there is a great potential for further development of the collaboration with Asian country in biotechnology development.
Yeah, I would certainly echo that in terms, we invest globally, so for companies in the US or in the UK, one of our jobs is to help them crack into the Asian system. So of course, China is a big name within in terms of population. But currently, there are different regulatory hurdles. If you go to Japan, there is a different set of like FDA counterpart that you have to get through. So mainly regulatory hurdles. I'm sure the same happens to other countries like Singapore, Thailand. So it would be nice if we could carry through the Asian-based collaboration to the extent, if you take reference to Europe, there's an EMA overseeing the regulatory affairs. So with the hope that one day that it will be simplified, that would be wonderful. It benefits participants as well as patients at the end of the day. So that would be something we really look forward to.
And I completely agree with Professor Mok and Mr. Au, definitely. And that's the whole point of our organizing this summit as well, because we see huge potential. It's already happening, but we feel that there can be more being done. And that's why we are organizing this with the focus on Asia and also with the focus on ASEAN and GBA. When we talk about ASEAN and GBA, it's not just ASEAN on its own or GBA on its own. It's actually everybody working together to develop the ASEAN and to develop the GBA. So it is very much a collaboration of the region. Answering the second question, yes, this is the first time we have brought together, as I mentioned, global, regional, and also local leaders to talk about healthcare and very focused on Asia. I'm sure there are already many major events around the world that will be looking at global health in general. And of course, I think everybody knows how active the US market is in terms of development in this sector. But we feel that Asia, with, as I mentioned earlier, the changing demographics, especially aging population, and also this enhanced sense of the need for well-being and sustainable public health system is growing so much after the pandemic. I think it is all the more important and timely for us to introduce a large-scale event to bring everybody together. So the short answer is yes, and we hope that it will continue to grow in the years to come.
Thank you all. We also have a question for Professor Mok. So you mentioned in your sharing that people is a key, right? So what are the challenges for university professors to bring their innovations to the commercial market? So would you like to say a few words on this?
Yes. Professor will be a difficult entrepreneur for a number of reasons. Number one is we don't know how, unless you're in the business side. And number two is that we may not have the time if we want to continue our job in the university. So we have to find a formula such that we have a young partner in the business development that we can work out the idea together. So there are two types of so-called professor. One is the older one like myself, that I can always find a younger partner to work together. But then there are also the young professor who start their career, and then they got a great idea, and they work on it on the university. So I think the Hong Kong government and the university has to look into the way to allow this young professor to have a dual-track career, in the sense that can they really have sufficient freedom to work in the university to develop their research interest, but in the same time has so-called the support to develop their entrepreneurship. So right now, we don't have that benefit. It's very difficult. You either take one or the other. But I think in the future, if there are dual-track development, that will attract a lot of young professors.
Thank you, Professor Mok. 台下會唔會有其他第二行
Hello, this is Roger Wong from HKCO1. Can I know, do you have set any target for such a big forum? For example, the number of money raised in this forum for the health development project?
I think as a first debut edition, we are not setting an amount of how much we must raise for our startups and so on. But I feel it is now at least important for people to think about Hong Kong when they think about investment opportunities in health innovation, including, of course, biotech. So I think first is raising the awareness. As we've done for, say, Asian Financial Forum, we have over 10 years to build up our reputation. So we are hoping that with a sustained effort in raising awareness around the world, that we will be able to put Hong Kong also on the radar screen. Also, we hope that with the investment mentors coming from around the world, we will also open up opportunities for our startups, our local startups, to meet with the international ecosystem so that we can further enhance the collaboration around town.
Thank you, Margaret. Is there any more questions from the floor?
I got a question just now. Professor Mok has mentioned about bring up like clinical trials and all that. As our company is developing some medical device, but we are on the way to obtain all the accreditation, all that. In order to do that, actually, I don't know whether Greater Bay Area have that kind of hub to allow us, like new startups, to do our clinical trials, any kind of platform that we can reach out to the targeted. Meanwhile, we're in a we still like seeking like a very stable collaboration sort of partners and to do so actually. So
right. So regarding clinical trial, the major hospitals in Hong Kong are actually very much in tune into the concept. Like, for example, in my unit in the clinical oncology, we have something called a CCTU, which is a conglomerate of about 6 or 7 research nurses, about 8 research associates, and a manager that we manage at any time, multiple clinical trials, mostly on drug. But I'm sure that in the surgical department that they were doing a lot more with the medical equipment. They also have their research machinery. So I think it's a matter of just making a call. I don't think there is a central, so-called matchmaking way of putting your technology into a particular department. But I think it would be quite obvious. Your application, you can easily identify the department that is involved. And in most of the university hospital that we actually had the clinical trials set up. And certainly, I can still remember my very first study. It was Eli Lilly. That was about 23 years ago. Just knocked at my door. I don't know him. He just said, I got this new drug. Do you want to do a trial with us? I say, okay, because I have nothing else to do, as a matter of fact. And so that actually started my career. And I'm sure that there are still young professors who are very much willing to venture into innovation and technology and participate.
Thank you, Professor Mok. Is there any more questions from the floor? Next one.
I'm Larry LeBon, president of LA Enterprises, and I was looking at your site, and it says expertise in pharmaceutical transportation. What does that mean?
Would you mind repeating the phrase? What you said?
Well, it says right here, expertise in pharmaceutical transportation. Maybe nobody.
Pharmaceutical transportation.
I think, I don't know which part of the website you're referring to, but one of the things that we have been doing is that our airport has been accredited by the international IATA to be one of those facilities that will be able to carry pharmaceutical transportation around the world, because basically it's temperature and humidity control. And I think we are one of the first airports to get both that accreditation for pharmaceutical transportation and also for fresh produce transportation. So I think that's probably what we are referring to, even though I don't know the exact context of it.
Maybe I can elaborate on that a little bit. Pharmaceutical products now no longer restricted to just pills. Nowadays, we actually talk about a lot of biological products, monoclonal antibody, as well as cellular therapy. And that actually have a very specific requirement on the transportation from end to end. And then it does take a so-called expert knowledge to transport those kind of product.
Thank you.
Thank you both. 台下仲會有其他嘅提問？
或者我用中文問啦，易啲寫稿。咁就因為醫療產業其實健康涉及好多科技啊，同埋好多成個商機都好龐大啦。咁想問翻台上三位咧，其實香港你覺得喺科學研究嗰方面啦，香港最強同最弱喺邊一方面咧？
我諗呢個會唔會係Professor 會叻啲啦？
我想講嘅最強係咪就係應該係我哋能夠做到一個嘅 innovation 係我哋有別人沒有，咁先叫最強。最弱我就唔識點 define， 所以我就唔會答你最弱呢個問題。但強勢咧，我覺得有幾方面嘅。第一，我哋覺得喺 infection 上高咧，其實喺呢一個嘅國際上高咧，香港都有相當嘅地位嘅。由袁國勇教授嗰邊啊，我哋許樹昌教授呢一邊啊。雖然你話佢哋兩個成日見報，佢唔止嘅，佢哋喺國際上高文獻咧都時常出現嘅。咁我就覺得佢哋喺呢個嘅 infection viral epidemic 上高咧係有一定嘅建樹，同埋呢個係有機會係 transform into 一個嘅business idea。好似例如fast testing 就唔關袁國勇嗰邊嘅事，但係香港要啲公司已經做咗啲 fast testing kit， 唔單止喺香港賣到東南亞同美國。咁呢個係一個好快脆嘅優勢嘅轉捩點，呢方面係一個啦。咁就亦都喺歷史之中咧，咁係有幾樣嘅癌症喺東方人嘅癌症上高咧，香港人我哋所做嗰堆嘅研究咧，亦都係得到國際上高嘅認可嘅。咁舉個例，尤其是喺Professor Dennis Low 啦，咁佢喺呢個嘅早期 癌症篩查呢方面咧，用血液血清嘅 DNA 咧，其實喺國際上高係影響力相當之大。依家有啲主要公司咧都係按佢嘅 patent 同埋佢嘅 discovery 咧去做嘅。咁所以我諗我就諗到呢兩個範疇咧，係 easily 咧，我哋喺國際上高咧可以被 recognize 嘅。
其他兩位會唔會都想講幾句？
唔係，如果想補充，我非常同意 Tony 嘅講法啦，即係特別係東方嘅某啲病，譬如肝有關嘅研究，或者肺癌有關嘅研究，我哋在座已經有專家喺度，咁呢啲就係即係值得香港我哋特別我哋叫深耕嘅一啲例子啦。咁可能 Professor 唔方便講啦，但係我覺得 limiting factor 都係有嘅。譬如話傳統上咧，我哋喺其他嘅行業咧，譬如喺金融業咧，我哋由上游一個想法到落實到資本市場咧，都係一條產業鏈，我哋係存在，就唔喺香港呢個地方都會存在嘅。喺以前我哋做生物科技投資咧，早期通常面對就係缺乏資金啦，因為喺以前比較缺乏會留意早期投資生物科技嘅投資人係聚集喺呢度，咁所以 TDC 亦都借助呢個機會，希望慢慢去將呢個成為一個氣氛啦。咁已經做咗好多年啦，其實同埋政府做咗好多，包括以前連香港連科學園都未有嘅時候，就即係好難去想像到會有生物科技公司嘅出現啦。咁基礎研究不嬲學校真係做得好好嘅，咁所以產業鏈嘅完整性咧係其中一個不足嘅地方。咁但係呢個不足就唔係值得擔憂嘅，只不過大家需要加把勁去做多啲嘢。咁同埋亦都除咗政府之外，包括投資者啦，同埋譬如聯交所都會做咗好多工作咧。而家就將嗰個成個產業鏈上下游咧，都開始成為一個幾大嘅。咁科學園亦都有唔同嘅擴建計劃，政府資助計劃亦都不斷有擴建，包括回答頭先其實相關問題，有多咗好多。參與者咧係會提供一個類似 CRO 或者 CDMO 嘅服務，去配合到我哋譬如做生物除咗做藥之外，做醫療設備咧，都有一系列嘅服務可以俾你選擇，包括去唔同嘅地方報批，即係各展所長嘅一個例子咯。
Alan 講完我就夠膽講係香港差喺咩地方。其實有兩點我想補充嘅，第一就係話我哋真係太細啦。好多時候我哋做一個 medical product 或者一個我就做基因測試啦，同投資者傾嘅時候，第一個時候你個 market size 喺邊度啊？一講香港我就唔使傾噶啦，因為香港實在太細。咁所以我哋公司好快脆就已經伸展去東南亞，就因為我哋個版圖係要咁樣嘅時候咧，先夠一個足夠嘅 market size 咧，令到投資者有興趣。咁所以相信如果係同大灣區接軌嘅時候咧，我哋嘅 market size 能夠係真係自動地變大咧，咁我相信係一個好吸引地方嚟嘅。呢個係其一。其二咧，始終都係租金。真係喺即係做初創公司嘅時候，租金係令我哋日朝夜累嘅一件事嚟嘅。科學園有啲幫助，但係科學園都唔係最平嘅地方嚟嘅。咁但係咧，就即係我相信整體嚟講咧，喺呢方面如果能夠做多少少嘢咧，係能夠彌補到我哋依家初創公司嘅一啲嘅困難。你講我先講嘅啫。
我諗 just to 即係兩位講嘅，我都非常同意啦。咁其中一樣嘢，我哋而家咧大家都好期待嘅咧，就係頭先教授講咗咧，就係呢一個大灣區。大灣區除咗係可以係一個大啲嘅市場啦，同埋咧，亦都我哋希望而家都知道咧，就係呢一個 Science Park 咧，其實係做緊一個特別嘅 cluster，係 InnoHealth Cluster 啦。咁佢已經咧係有20幾間咧係國際嘅唔同嘅laboratory 咧，已經係 set up 咗喺度嘅。咁呢個咧就希望咧，亦都可以係幫到啲初創啦，即係佢哋起碼揾到一啲地方可以幫佢哋做到佢哋一啲需要嘅實驗啊，或者係 trial 啊咁樣。我自己覺得咧就係到最後咧，其實 最緊要就係唔好局限咗香港，淨係喺香港自己。係啦，即係同東南亞合作又可以，同呢一個大灣區合作又可以，因為我哋都係大灣區嘅一部分。咁所以咧，其實我哋所有做嘅嘢咧，其實我諗，尤其是係所有一啲初創做嘅嘢咧，佢哋可能開始就係由一個細啲嘅本地市場開始，但係佢哋放眼咧，通常咧都係國際或者起碼係區域性嘅。所以我諗我哋自己做嘢嗰陣時候咧，亦都係要將嗰個 ecosystem 咧擴闊咗嘅。即係無論我係講資金啦、人才啦，或者係作為一個市場咧，我哋都應該係睇闊啲嘅。
唔該晒3位。咁另外我哋都收到一個廣東省嘅媒體嘅提問嘅，咁我諗呢條問題Professor Mark 或者係歐生都可以回應下嘅。咁近年咧就受到呢個疫情啦，同埋環球經濟放緩嘅影響咧，請問兩位啦，覺得會唔會都影響內地投資者咧對於醫療科技嘅投放，定係咧醫療產業方興未艾，即係仲係蓬勃發展嘅時候，反而會更加吸引投資者咧？唔知兩位點睇？
我先講 Tony。我覺得醫療產業咧好多時候都被定義為一個朝陽行業，即係有好多空間。咁但係每樣嘢都唔係100%嘅，你一定係有一啲隱患，或者大家會睇到，譬如過去呢10年會有啲過度集中投資喺差唔多嘅技術上面。咁你喺幾年之後咧就發現咧，差唔多嘅譬如做新藥嘅靶點會出現好多參與嘅醫藥公司。咁會面對嘅問題就係個差異性嘅問題，同埋好似係大家要鬥快，或者有大家可能注意到有個背景就係一個價格嘅問題，最終喺市場定價。如果市場定價係唔係你原本預期咁高，你會唔會倒翻轉喺你個發展嘅過程係咪有利可圖咧？咁市場永遠都會出現呢啲正同埋負嘅因素喺入邊嘅。咁但係整體嚟講咧，我哋係好樂觀嘅。因為頭先 Margaret 都講過啦，Tony 都分享就係特別係亞洲或者其實全球都遇到呢個問題，就係老年化啦。另外就係一個中產嘅想要多啲選擇。咁所以我哋喺做投資永遠就係留意，我哋除咗必須要有差異性，同埋要面向全球市場之外，因為唔單止係一個地方可能有價格競爭嘅，其他越嚟越係會其中一個課題就係 affordability。咁呢個會影響你最終嘅盈利嘅基礎咧。你倒翻轉睇咧，就係你嘅差異性喺邊度嚟啦。咁所以我哋揾嘅時候就係你一定個差異性唔係一日3日，個差異性係需要足夠長，然後你得到一個因為呢個壁壘而導致你得到一個相對比正常更優嘅回報，作為一個目標，即係投資嘅目標。咁所以你就要去運用而家最先進嘅 technology， 其中亦都相對到香港嘅優勢就係我哋歷史上係比較靈活嘅做嘢，點樣去結合呢啲優勢，包括頭先我提到嘅人工智能嘅開發，然後做某啲以前我哋唔能夠攞到一粒數據，而家我哋可以仲用新嘅傳感器攞到好多粒數據，而引入到嗰個 AI 嘅出現，去分析呢啲數據，提供一個非常之有用嘅一個選擇方案出嚟。咁當然啦，我哋再諗遠啲，其實我哋自己睇入邊咧，我哋想再諗遠啲嘅。除咗呢啲協助醫生做決定嘅嘢之外咧，我哋最終想達到目的咧，係將一部分嘅醫療決策可以自動化咗佢嘅。即係某程度你想象下一個機械人能夠幫助到嗱，但係絕對我哋唔係想替代醫生啊，我哋想醫生去集中精力去做佢哋更叻、更好嘅嘢，將啲常規嘅嘢，好似自動駕駛咁。如果要醫生去揸車，就嘥咗佢哋，大材小用。同一個背景咧，我哋想將一個運用到可以令到醫生可以集中做佢最叻嘅嘢，然後將大部分嘢可以自動化咧。呢個就係其中做醫療設備我哋其中一個好大想實現嘅目標。
少少補充就係咁樣。人類嘅健康問題係永遠存在嘅。你解決咗一個問題，有第二個問題出現，你肺癌可以生存到3年生存咩？佢就會話點可以唔係5年呢？到5年生存嘅時候，點解唔可以10年呢？所以呢個問題永遠存在。所以人類嘅健康永遠都係需要科研佢嘅進度嘅發展去解決個問題。呢個係自然嘅，投資係人為嘅。你可以用唔同嘅炒作嘅方法，幾時興乜嘢，幾時投資咩嘢，以至你有 go in、invest and exit fast， 有唔同嘅 方法，係一個人類嘅問題。但我哋要歸根究底要問呢個問題，到底就係話醫療發展係為咗 investor 定為咗病人先？我絕對相信我哋首要係為病人嘅 investor 可能係輔助我哋達成呢啲嘅夢想，而唔係醫療嘅發展成為咗 investor 一個工具。咁所以我唔同意頭先講法，就係話好似完喎，呢個已經係夕陽或者係新興，呢個唔應該係咁樣睇。我覺得應該係一個大家永遠一個合作性嘅，希望用唔同嘅 investment tool， 以致我哋有能力去發展更多能夠解決健康問題嘅方法。
唔該晒兩位，台下仲會有其他嘅提問 ？Is there any more questions from the floor?
I got a question for Mr. Al. What kind of project looks attractive to you as an investor?
Oh, wow, that's a very good question. And I don't have a very good answer. So when we look for investments, we look for the team. A team, as Tony also mentioned, it's not about just science. It's about practicality and putting things into perspective. And there's a track record required. You say you do things in 3 months, you achieve certain milestones. Can you really deliver those? And as a whole, what we're looking for, if you look at our portfolio, many of those are either the world only or like world first for the time being. Other people, we expect other people to catch up. So for example, we're the first investor from Asia into real-time sequencing technology. For example, that's one. We're involved with a predictive care company. Now we're hours ahead of golden standard into predicting acute kidney failure. It's a approved product in EU as well as US, and we're moving the product into Japan. And we're trying to have minimally invasive procedures in robotics to try to help inclusive of lung cancer, trying to have early diagnostic as well as treatment within the same time frame. And we like crazy ideas. You won't believe it. We're involved with a company, using 2 endoscopes to deliver 2 magnets to punch a hole in your small intestine, and that would effectively treat type 2 diabetics potentially. It's subject to trials and stuff, but we like those bold ideas into solving major problems, and then we have to assess whether the team and the money is enough to pull off what they say they would pull off. So we after big ideas. We look for like passionate team who have the execution capability, and we also want to look from the patient's perspective. What at the end of the day we're delivering. If we're purely after the money, we won't be entering this field. Life science by itself, it's by default you have a lot of hurdles made in front of you, regulatory hurdles, monetary hurdles, and they're like you need to deliver clinical trials results in a positive way to convince the regulatory body to approve you. So it's not just about like investment return. At the end of the day, we usually term it as an impact factor, and we try to pull in the necessary tools in order to collectively deliver that impact at the end of the day.
Thank you. Thank you for all your questions, and thanks once again to all our distinguished guests for joining us today. We are also very glad to be joined by 5 ASGH InnoHealth Showcase exhibitors today. So our media friends, you are most welcome to walk around and interact with our exhibitors to know more about their solutions and services. This marks to the end of today's press conference. I would like to remind you all that the first Asia Summit on Global Health will be held on the 24th of November at the Hong Kong Convention and Exhibition Center in a hybrid format, and we look forward to seeing you there. Thank you and have a nice day.